Hey everyone, this is Pete Perusic, and I want to welcome you to this edition of the Weathered Athlete Podcast, a place for us to honor those athletes that refuse to go quietly into the night. As a weathering triathlete and a physical therapist, I will spend my time talking with those athletes that continue to make the necessary repairs and continue to move forward. They may have a few cracks in their foundation or a squeaky step, and their patinas may continue to fade, but they are no less glorious than years prior. In fact, I feel they have more heart and resolve as they have weathered and can provide the pathway to set the standard that we should all live by. My goal is to determine what sets these individuals apart from the rest of society. After the discussion is over, I encourage you to stick around and hear a breakdown from a physical therapist perspective of how this weathering athlete is able to keep moving forward. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a comment, and share with your friends. Today I am honored to have Sam Tahhan with me as my guide for mile number 14. In an effort to increase the diversity of the sports covered, I had reached out to the Boulder Old Boys rugby team for a contact of a member that may be interested in being on the podcast. In true rugby fashion, I am thankful to have been able to spend an hour plus over a beverage a few Fridays ago with Sam. We had such a great conversation, taking a deep dive into what he learned as a professional golfer and a rugby player in his youth and as he has aged. We spend time discussing what role coaching has taught him about the it factor and what playing alongside players in their 60s and 70s has taught him about the drive and perseverance. We explore the role athletics plays in his writing and social life, including the wonderful experiences and relationships he has formed while playing rugby. His enthusiasm for his family, rugby, and life is evident throughout our conversation. His award-winning TV and film writing background provided great insight and detail on the hard work it has taken for him to succeed, what he does to maintain his health, and how he plans to continue to take on life, which pretty much sums up what a rugby player is. I hope you enjoy. Well, I want to welcome everybody to the Weathered Athlete Podcast. I'm here with Sam Tahhan. Is that correct?
Yes, that's it.
All right. I'm here with Sam Tahhan. He is a writer and musician and a member of the Boulder Old Boys Rugby, but I'm going to let you fill in all the details. So anything you want to let us know about, just a little backstory about yourself.
Sure. I'm from Lamar, Missouri originally, like a small town in the Midwest, home of Harry S. Truman, birthplace. And I grew up in a really small town, and it was a little bit footloose experience for me. I had big aspirations of being a writer. Even at the age of 12, had dreamt of writing for SNL when I was a kid. And so I pursued that while in my undergrad and then also grad school. But I did, before that, I had a stint as a professional golfer and a director of golf for Nike golf schools in Missouri. Okay. I taught thousands of kids to play golf, and I enjoyed every last minute of it. I still occasionally teach people. So I was doing two lives at once, which if you know much about me, that's kind of how I am. I'm always running on two tracks at the same time. Went to the service in the middle of undergrad, served with the U.S. Army and the cavalry, loved it and got in incredible shape at the time. I started to race and run competitively. Came back out of that and fell in love with rugby. And I pursued rugby for a few years, turned to golf. And meanwhile, I was going back to school and finishing all this. So I was doing, like I said, two tracks, playing golf competitively. And then once that ran its course, I finished up grad school and somehow broke into Hollywood and just a lot of hard work, and now I'm a TV and film writer managed by a group called The Cartel. Okay. You can find on cartelhq.com. It's they manage a lot of big writers, performers, actors, directors, and so it's been a real honor. I got to recently audition for Saturday Night Live, which was the dream when I was a kid. So I'm having a weird resurgence in this middle part of my life. Yeah. And I think that it's been as fulfilling as I wanted it to be when I was young. So it's been a wild ride so far.
That's pretty cool. So, with all this COVID stuff going on, before we get in the other stuff, how has that affected Hollywood? Because everything's been shut down for a while, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's, obviously production is low, but streaming services are taking off because that's all there is to watch right now.
Yeah.
And so Netflix is gobbling up a lot of things. Amazon has got a pretty healthy log of stuff, their projects they're putting in the pipeline. And so for a writer, it's paradise because there's multiple things getting picked up. And so I have a pilot right now that's being shopped in town, is the terminology, um, and it's a hitman action comedy that's well received so far. And then today I hit a deadline on a trucker action comedy, which is really a lot of fun. And so that will go into the Hollywood stratosphere. So for writers, not a bad time. Directors, it's always slow. I mean,
Yeah.
the output is incredible right now with what Hollywood is capable of putting out into the universe. But the model is changing. They're looking at streaming services, even as small as Snapchat. Snapchat's picking up channels. And so there's a lot of opportunities that weren't there when I was a kid that are now available. And if you're a hardworking writer, you can sell things. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
That's awesome. Yeah, 'cause I wondered how things are. I know I have a cousin in the music business, and he's actually with Michael Bolton. He's the sound engineer and basically manages his stuff. But I know it's been very, very slow, and they're not really doing much of anything right now. Few private gigs, I guess, but it's just crazy how everything's just stopped.
Yeah, that's actually how I broke free from the corporate handcuffs that I was kind of working in a sales rep jobs and medical device. And I wrote a song it's a long story, but I wrote a song for a national campaign for rural electric cooperatives. So Touchstone Energy, who handles all the electric cooperatives in the country, for rural America, I wrote a song honoring linemen, and it took off. And I was able to fund my way out of my music. Like I was able to fund my way out of corporate and into music, and then music parlayed into film. So it was wild. It was really interesting.
That's pretty cool. Now, I did see when you sent me some stuff. You coach D2 rugby?
Yeah. When I was living in Kansas City, I guess this was 2008. I was transitioning back to Springfield, Missouri, where my wife and I both went to college and grad school. And I got asked to come back to the team that I played with in the 90s and early 2000s and take on the coaching responsibility, which I did for 4 years. I did a lot of fundraising in between all those years, but specifically 4 years that were just incredible for me because I got to build the program. The game changed so much. You have to understand that when you and I were younglings, it was a much bigger dude's game.
Yeah.
And so I'm too, I was 225 when I was playing.
Okay.
I'm 6'1", I'm not small, but I played with giants. Like I played with gigantic guys. Like my props were like 3'10", 6'4" dudes,
Yeah.
And so the game changed and it got leaner and smaller and it got much faster. And so I had to modernize the offense, and it was an incredible challenge. But the thing that I did, I think it was the best play I made, was that we have a sister city with the Pill Harrier Club in Wales. And so we had 3 guys over here. We hosted them in Springfield, put them up for 6 months, and they helped me retool because anytime you put foreign players on your team, like that have grown up with this game since they're 8, or 6 or 8, it's just natural to them. And so they helped me modernize it. Then I established a relationship with the Grafton Redmen in New South Wales, and brought 3 of their guys over, and we started to win. And obviously winning breeds more winning, and so
Yeah.
the program grew, and it's now developed into a program that now has a ladies team and a high school team, and so it was an honor to be a part of that. I really enjoyed coaching rugby. Incredibly, it was an incredible game.
That's cool.
Violent, I'll get out.
So that's cool. So what'd you learn from that experience moving forward?
Well, I think that I think I've always thought a lot of the lessons I learned in sports came from golf, and I think that the carryover, the thing I brought over was that there's really, to me, there's two types of athletes. There's the kinds that want to beat you, and the kinds that want to beat themselves. Mm-hmm. And finding a way to make those dynamics work with 15 players on the pitch at a time is a challenge, and yet it's all about putting the right players in leadership roles on the pitch, because they can to some degree, carry the rest of the team, but they can also drive without speaking. It's amazing to watch. Like myself, I'm obviously talkative and very, I'm engaging and have to pitch a lot and stuff, but I'm a very quiet player because I want to beat myself type player.
Yeah.
And so I had probably 6 guys on the pitch that were that way, and I put them in the right positions to let them be themselves, because I think in competitive sports you have to be your own person. I think even if you're trying to play with a team, I think you have to be you, not in the showboating way, mm-hmm. but in the leadership way, and taking people along with you. And so when you empower people to take responsibility over their actions and themselves on the pitch, they become something greater than they were. And that was, I think leadership I think coaching is more about listening and adapting than it is about telling and pushing. So
yeah, and then you go to golf and it's just you. I mean, it's you and the voices in your head, right?
yeah. I'm a little bit haunted by golf, but it is. It's, however, I think that the better you get, I know that when I was really pushing to get better competitively, I really, I know that it was becoming more mundane in the method, and to me, it became just like shooting a free throw.
Yeah.
You learn to breathe properly, and you learn to trust your stroke, and then get out of the way of it. And because all the guys I played against could hit the ball a mile, and they could all hit it wonderfully, right? But it was the dude who could control his nerves, mm-hmm. who could really get and that guy wasn't. It wasn't like he wasn't nervous. Yeah. He was just really methodical. I watched the guys. I still watch a lot of golf, and I watch the pre-shot routine of these people playing now, and they're so focused and so disciplined. But they're also able to walk away once the shot's done. They let it go, and I think sports psychology has made a gigantic difference in the way athletes are performing nowadays, because they're understanding that it's a whole body experience. It's not just your physicality; it's your ability to control yourself in any sport. That's why I love rugby. Yeah. Because it's violent, man. It is violent as all get out. But you don't see a lot of fights. You really don't. You don't see you don't really see much smack talking, and you don't see much pushing and shoving. People leave it to the technique of the game, and they play, and you're going to get hammered. You are going to get crushed at times, but everybody's doing that. And they walk onto the pitch knowing that's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so they by minimizing expectations of, I'm going to be treated nicely today. They don't walk into the game thinking that. And so I think that's why all the guys can have beers afterwards. You drink them with teammates. I mean, I have broke a guy's arm, and then we drinking beer afterwards. We have done some incredible weird camaraderie that exists, but I think it's because there's a certain type of guy that plays that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I never played it, but just from college, we used to go out and watch everybody play. And yeah, there's definitely a certain type of mentality, I think, going into that game, of how you have to just go in, and then you're right, you go out and celebrate after. It doesn't matter. It's crazy.
Yeah, COVID. That unfortunately, Boulder wants to travel, like travels every other year, and I play with a wonderful rugby group for 35 and older, Boulder Old Boys in Boulder, Colorado, and they are. I mean, there are some international players that play for us, and these guys are really solid team. And so when we travel in the mountain region, we play competitively, and still, it's wonderful. We're obviously not doing anything right now, and we were all going to Germany to Oktoberfest, which was going to happen this month, and sadly, we're all home.
Yeah.
And so the guys are all on chat groups now and just watching rugby together, watching films. There's still very much a sense of family, very much a sense of camaraderie. It stinks because guys were training, guys were getting fit, and when you're up in years, you obviously feel like, well, am I going to have a chance to keep doing this? But I have never seen guys push each other more to stay active, to stay fit, and so we'll go back as soon as this is all over.
Yeah, it's been such an interesting time. As I think we talked, I'm in the triathlon world, and same thing as events get canceled. In the beginning, it's so frustrating to see everything just fall apart on you. But then once you regroup, I'm like, I'm never gonna have this time again. So again, I don't need an event. Let's just get out there and hit it and train and have fun. And so yeah, I think that's a good thing. Next year is going to be. I can't imagine there's going to be some people in shape, and I don't care what sport it is. It's going to be. There's going to be some competition, I think, and some frustration. I think there's going to be people hitting each other in rugby next year.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Or that's the way they get their frustrations out. My wife always says you are in such a good mood when you get home after a rugby game, because I just release all whatever inner rider demons I might have. I just exercise all that. But it's I understand what you mean. It's because the thing that happens, I think, to older athletes is I don't know, my perception of it's changed just more recently, that we slow down the training a little bit. Yeah. We're obviously trying to push it, but we don't necessarily keep at it because the aches and pains are there. And so it's easy to get more excuses going. Yeah. But in this isolation, in this moment, you are left with only you. And some people thrive in that. Yeah. Some people, I love the individuality of golf, but I also love the individuality of running. Yeah. Because I love, obviously I'm in a beautiful state to go for a run, but I love the act of running. And I think that is something that the athletes are going to thrive in this. I think they are there for the sport, because I think maybe obviously with rugby, it's like, are you just there to drink? But it's not, I think the guys I'm playing with they definitely love the game. And so that's going to be, I'm excited to see what happens next year, because dudes are going to get fit.
Yeah. Oh, I know. So yeah, I want to, as far as like the golf and now you just brought up running with that, how does that help you with writing? Be that alone time, because you're doing it all yourself, correct?
My sanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no small. I am the consummate writer in a lot of ways, because the best way to explain it is like, you have a favorite memory. You have a memory from your childhood, right? And so what I can do is take a memory that I have, and then I can, I can create a new memory. Yeah. Let's say I just create a room, and then I can take the room and I can move it around. I can put people inside it. I can twist it. I can see it from every angle. And so living in that headspace for too long can get unnerving. It is not a healthy place to be for days on end. And so running completely gets me away from it. Yeah. It takes my mind off of it. It takes me into a different place that rugby takes me to. And I think it's what I love about rugby over golf, is that I don't think when I play, I merely react and respond. Yes, is writing like that? Sometimes, but I'm very meticulous about my writing, and so I need to completely break away from it. Physically, I also need to not sit all the time,
Yeah.
and so I'm have a standing desk. I split time between that, and so I do the Fitbit thing. I get my steps in, and I take a lot of time to get away from my work. I do most of my writing on a run or in the shower. I mean, I am that guy. I wake up before I'm going to bed. I work late, so it's midnight, and I'm laying down in bed, and I'm recording on the phone, probably driving my wife nuts, but she's used to it. She's still here. So I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is. My wife's a runner too. She ran Chicago 8 times. I mean, she's been a marathoner for forever, and it is for us. It's peace of mind. Like we hiked today before this call. We were out on a pretty decent hike, and I think there's just something about disconnecting from this insanity that's not only currently going on now, but the stress that we're required to endure as professionals, business professionals. It can be maddening. So I use sports, and I specifically use running to break away from that, to get completely disconnected.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I love running and I love cycling again because I'm not thinking about anything. You basically just disconnect and just do it. I wish, you're definitely in a beautiful state, and I'm looking forward to I'm doing Boulder 70.3 in August, so I'll be there in August for.
Call me. Let's go get a drink.
We will. I'll be there probably for at least a week and a half. I know I can't go out there for a couple days. I got to go out there and spend some time and do some stuff. But I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to going out there. What?
You got to come acclimate.
Yes, I know. So I need to get there. I need to get there, and but yeah, I'm looking forward to going there. And I was there when I was in high school, and I loved it. It's such an awesome state.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing too. I think the people here are fit.
Yeah.
We moved from Missouri, and it was kind of the joke was that we stopped seeing people drink. Or having cigarettes while they're having their oxygen tank.
Yeah.
Or people smoking in their car. I don't remember the last time I've seen a person smoke in their car.
Yeah.
And, so it's not a smoking culture. Well, it's a different kind of smoking.
Yeah.
But it's not the normal, the nasty one smoking.
Yeah.
So there's, all of our friends are fit.
Yeah.
Like, everyone here that we know skis, runs, bikes, or does some sort of physical activity on a very regular basis. Like when I want to go hang out with I have a buddy that lives here like 20 minutes from me, and from Lamar, and we hung out all the time as kids. We ski together like every Tuesday. We go up in the morning and ski together for an hour, and we're back home. And God, that's such a cool way to live, man. Because it's getting off the grid. Yeah. It's just hanging out and having a conversation that's not online.
Yeah.
And I think it's very grounding. So it's, I love it here. We absolutely love it here. We love California too, but and I work, obviously I have to go there when I work, but it's hard to get out of here.
Yo, I'm sure. So as far as like right now playing rugby, what do you have to do to stay in shape? Because it's not something you just roll out of bed and go play.
No, I play a position called flanker, and that's the easiest way to understand it would be like a linebacker with some ball carrying skills, right? So I am the middle-sized guy with more stamina.
Okay.
So you run on average about 8 miles when you play a game over the course of the 80 minutes because there's no timeouts. You only stop when the ball goes out of bounds. And so a flanker in particular is a rover. And so they spend a lot of time moving across the field. And so my workouts are designed for shoulder strength. And so I do lots of clean and jerk in the garage. I have the whole thing, and then I box quite a bit for shoulder strength. And then after that, it's all running. And I mostly do distance running because that's what's going to help me the most on the pitch. I don't recommend that for a back, like a guy who's fast. I'm medium fast, but I can run the same speed for 80 minutes. And so I have to have endurance. So I do 2 to 4 mile runs, and then I supplement with interval training, fartlek. So I do quite a bit of intervals. I do a lot of beep testing.
Okay.
I kind of avoid hills because I have the hips of a Labrador now that I'm older, but I'm still good. But I do. So lots more long running. The big dudes, the really big guys, it is a slow shuffle for them. So, but yeah, for my position, mine's pretty it connects the backs and the forwards. Okay. So so that's mostly my running is that way.
Okay. Have you had to deal with any injuries?
Yeah. Yes. I'll work backwards. I just recently got diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis, and it helped me connect a lot of things from my past. My rheumatologist was wonderful. Dr. Weissman, top rated here in Boulder, and he was able to kind of look back to my childhood where I had some trouble with growing pains and such. Had back trouble in golf, and that started my first experience with a physical therapist, Lance Stewart, who was a wonderful friend of mine, and put me in orthotics to help with my feet because, as you know, a lot of this starts from the ground up, right? So worked on my feet and then worked on my hamstrings, and that was the joke was I always had like hamstrings like elevator cables, right? So I started Pilates and yoga. I still do it quite a bit when I'm having a little bit of back stiffness. I still stretch just like I got the mat upstairs and I get on. I get back to yoga. It helps every time. I hate it. It's horrible and it's painful, but it is the most wonderful deep stretch a person can do individually. So lots of back trouble early on, much better now. My feet kind of gave way once the arthritis really started to get bad. I was hobbling. I was waking up and it wasn't because of rugby. It's because my body was kind of deteriorating. So I got treatment. It has been a godsend, and I've been able to drop weight and in the process run more again. And that heals my soul, man. It really does. Yeah. So I've mostly fought that. I had the other injuries are just like, I chipped a tooth once, it wasn't anything that held me down. Those two things were the biggest things that kind of slowed me down a bit, but I really, really value physical therapy. I really do, because of what it's been able to over anything, over any kind of chiropractor or doctor I've been to. PT seems to be so focused towards the athlete. These obviously, yes, there's different types of PT, but this, like, I've been able to go to my physical therapist in Boulder and work on that mostly. I have good knees, always have. I have good legs, have good, strong upper core, but it's that silly back of mine that every now and goes out. So,
well, that's good, especially playing rugby. You wonder, because how much, let's say pre-COVID, how much were you playing, a week? How's it work?
So there's games every Saturday, spring and fall.
Okay.
There's usually I was actually playing, believe it or not, playing with the younger guys. Okay. Even when I coached, I was a player coach, so I was helping then. I was playing. So I've played in 3 decades. I've played in my 20s out of the service, and then came back and played in my mid-30s, and then played with the young guys again in my mid-40s. As I am not mid-40 any longer, I transitioned to the old boys who are shockingly fast. So I was just kind of continuing to play with each group. I will continue to play with each group.
Yeah.
I mentioned on the phone, I remember we were talking before, I was like, I'm not getting paid to plug this, but I thought it'd be interesting for anybody kind of living regionally around here to come, if they wanted to come see people play at this age, they should go to Aspen at Ruggerfest when it does open back up, because it's an incredible tournament. I have seen him play. I've played across from guys who are New Zealand All Blacks, like the top level players in the world, and we're rickety and old, right?
Yeah.
But it's still hard hitting, and it's just an amazing tournament, and it's so inspiring to watch a guy who's 72 out there just getting it done. Like, he's still running, he's still hungry, and he still has that desire. I don't think that goes away. I don't think that ever goes away.
No, it doesn't. I don't care what sport it is. And
Right.
as I've been doing this, talking to people, it's amazing how competitive. I think you wake up one day and say, okay, yeah, I'm good that I went out and did this, but they want to win. And I've been at the senior games, and I've seen 70, 80, and close to 90-year-olds putting it down. I mean, they want to win that race.
Yeah, it's funny. I always used to say when I was a kid, I said, I would rather use my body up right now than let my life's work be water aerobics when I was 80, right? And so I was bent on being, and and I married a person that thinks that way.
Yeah.
Like, let's just go at it full tilt, until we're done, until it's over,
Yeah.
because what else is there? This is the most wonderful opportunity to be around guys who are not only like-minded, kind of mentally, and it's you got one shot, right? You get one
Yeah.
body, you get one shot. And I've been chubby before. I've been, I put on the weight a little bit, and I don't want to live like that. I don't want to. When I was in medical sales, I used to ask my doctors, every one of them, I said, this conversation would always come up. They would always tell me, if people got fit, whether it's losing a bit of weight, or quitting smoking, or anything they could do to get just a little more fit, most of the medicines we were on would be gone, null and void. And so, like, I see when I retire from riding, but I'll probably never retire from riding.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's so true when it comes to athletics, is that those people will continue, and they have issues sometimes. I've talked to runners who've had bypass grafts, and they're out there still running with a heart monitor on and still doing things, or they've had strokes, and they have diabetes, they have some of this stuff, and they continue. There's no excuse. So that's the difference, is they're like, I'm doing it, And
you can either stay home and not do it, or you can get out and go at it full tilt. And I think that person is the ladder is always going to be happier. I think, because they're going to find something. And I want to preface this with a little backstory. I was a horribly clumsy kid. I was not in any way athletic, and so. And obviously, as a writer, I have to explore all types of personalities. And so I would definitely not say the quintessential jock type. I was young, clumsy, cut from all the teams, tried to make, I tried, and I finally kind of, things were progressing a little bit in golf and in high school, but it wasn't until I was 19. And that my body, something shifted in me, and things just started to make sense physically. Like, I could move, I could throw, and so I still remember that kid. I remember that kid struggling, like, to want to be there. And I still think, as both a writer and an athlete, I'm that kid still. And I think if you stay that hungry, that thing that you want, instead of falling on the thing you are and believing, well, I'm stuck this way, I think that you can continue to evolve. And that's a lesson I've tried to teach my kids, is that you never really, if you go at it, you don't have to stop growing. You can continue to become something more and more and more.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I joke that I'm 51, and I'm just on my way up. So come 70, 80, look out. That's why I'm going to be crushing it at 70, 80. I still got another 20, 30 years to basically to hit my peak. So
That's awesome. No, that's a great way to look at it. Yeah, it's. I think it was funny. I think one thing that changed me when you're talking about injuries
yeah.
was I think I was resolved to, oh well, this is what 40s are like, and I'm gonna just get old and rickety, and that's gonna be it. And then I read an article that was essentially saying, look, you're not getting stiffer because you're getting older. It's because you're getting less mobile. You're not trying. You're not moving as much.
Yeah.
And sure as the world, the only downside I ever found to riding full time was that because I broke away 6 years ago, so that I took an office job for the first time in early 40s, and that's when I packed on the weight, started quit smoking, and I was just putting it on. But I was really bought into this thing. Well, this is what life is going to be like, and I forgot that kid for a second.
Yeah.
Forgot that, wait a minute, I have no desire to be that way. I wanted to go drive and push, but I was letting it go. And when I read that silly article, I thought, well, now I don't have an excuse. I've actually got to go back at this because of the joy that sport has brought me. It is not my only joy. I love to read, and I absolutely love to write. And today, hitting that deadline, I hit a major deadline today with a feature film, and that is the most rewarding thing emotionally to me, mentally, emotionally, physically. But the supplemental uplift that I get from sports is, I think it's what you're trying to get your kids to do without pushing them into doing it. Because they have to love it for themselves. I know teaching golf, if I taught 4,000 kids, I can think of 10 offhand that had a chance to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
10 out of 4,000. But the rest of them were out there swinging a club too. So, I think that if you, but the point with the golfing is that these kids had, the ones that could be phenomenal, they had some sort of thing inside them that they wanted something greater than themselves, something outside of themselves, and they continued to push and push and push, and it was beautiful to watch because there was such dedication to any sport. That's what I think. That's why I appreciate so much my experience with golf, because it taught me to. It taught me the thing that writing is now showing me in full splendor. Golf showed me that the time you put in, if you do it to perfection, if you go for it to perfection, it will give back to you every single time. It may disappoint you. Yeah. It may cause you to stumble and stagger, but 9 times out of 10, if you inject yourself into it wholeheartedly, you'll get way more back. And I did, and I got back. I wasn't that guy that was like, I'm going to teach the kids and I'm going to make them great. And I wanted to be the one. I wanted to be. But yeah, there are so many good books about golf. I don't know if you ever played, but it's so many good books about the mental, emotional, spiritual aspect. There's a book called Golf. If Golf is Not a Game of Perfect by Bob Rotella that really explores the mental aspect of it. There's Golf in the Kingdom that explores the spiritual aspect of it. But if any golfers out there, I would still recommend those books because they touch on humanity. They touch on us as people, the way we, and not only as athletes, but who we are within these games. And I think that's what we're all kind of, when you're on your runs, I know you have moments where you feel in touch with the universe, man. I know that you feel like, because there's just some sort of weird clarity that exists that you cannot get anywhere else than on a run. A long run, body's kind of like, are we sure we want to be out here, man? Like, I want to keep going. And then you keep going, and it's maybe that's the wall or breaking the wall or whatever you call it, but it's completely, it's even being outside of yourself. I don't know if you've ever hit the wall, man. I don't know if you've ever been completely to it, but what an amazing experience. Like that, I want to ask you that. Like,
Yeah.
so one of the questions my professional golf buddies and I always had was like, hey, when we were helping other people play, um, getting in the zone, the guys that I played with that were phenomenal, like amazing players, could get there, just get there. Those 10 kids out of the 4,000 could get there. But I didn't have a clue how to teach anybody to do that. If you were going to teach somebody to run and how to get into that moment, how to push past that moment, do you think you could do that? Do you think you could?
It's so hard, as far as like, I've done some marathons. I did the Ironman last year, and I just did a 52-mile run for my birthday in September. And you basically have to, you just got to keep going. So if you keep telling yourself, this is fun, I'm enjoying myself, eventually you don't even think about it. Yeah, it hurts. And I think that's the hardest part with anything. I think you start to feel something, you're like, I'm going to stop. I can't go any farther. But it's amazing. You can always go one more step. You can always do one more mile. You can always do a little bit more. I have a friend that he does ultra. He does 100-mile runs, and his big thing is anybody can do another mile. Anybody. So every time I'm struggling, I'm thinking about, okay, I could do that. Anybody can do another step. Anybody can do another mile. It's just another mile. Come on. And then, but you're right. Once you break through that wall, it just, I don't know. It's just, you're at peace, I guess, is the best way to describe it.
I guess the question is, did you teach yourself that? Did you find it on your own, or did somebody pull you through the thing?
You kind of both. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. It's funny. I did Tobacco Road Marathon about 3 years ago with a friend of mine, and I thought I was trained. He ran the whole thing with me. We got to about mile 20, and I was done. And he stayed with me, and he was, come on, Pete. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. I'm like, don't even talk to me. And I'm like, I don't want to hear a word you're saying. So poor Eric couldn't pull me through. Like, we got to the finish, but he couldn't pull me through. And I'm like, Eric, I don't want to talk to you right now.
It's funny, man, because I was thinking when you were saying like, oh yeah, it's so much, you have to tell yourself it's so much fun. I'm like, were you running on the same roads I was running on? Because at every moments when you're going like, oh my God, I hit everything. You're just absolutely in the darkest place you can possibly be.
Yeah. Well,
but I was in the Army. I think it was funny. I had what flipped the switch for me was a very simple time in my life. I was a really troubled teen. I was like a wreck of a kid, and I think people just naturally default to the saying, well, the Army will straighten you out, but It doesn't. Like, it's just a microcosm of life. There are about 4% of the people that get into there and see the opportunity they have, and I was one of those. Like, I do not want to go back to this kind of wasteoid life I was living, and so I went to the service, and my run times just plummeted. I mean, I think I went there running a 15:32 mile, and by the time I was done, I was at a 10:23, and I got to compete in this thing in Fort Knox called the Ranger Challenge. Then I went to pre-Ranger school, a dismounted armor scout course, and shameless plug, I ended up winning the Army Athlete of the Year in Fort Knox.
Nice.
Out of like 40,000 people. Well, I needed that because I came from the Schoolhouse Rock special, like the after school special, and I needed that like affirmation that you too can, if you push and push, you can get there. And so it was, God, that was such a good experience for me as a kid, because I was I needed affirmation that I was physically strong enough to match the like hard candy shell that I kind of carried around as a kid. But I remember those runs. I remember training, like when I broke free, when I won that Athlete of the Year thing, I got to train for a year and a half full time. That's all I did. I'd wake up at 5:30, go train with my Ranger group, and we would train for till 3 5:30 in the morning until 3, hiking the woods in Louisville, Kentucky, or Fort Knox is where I was. And I can remember how grueling those workouts were, and sleeping in the cold and being hungry, and we're going to keep going. Now you're going to carry a telephone pole for 4 miles. Okay, all right. Well, I guess that's what we're doing now. And I think that's call back what I was talking about rugby players, how they need to be themselves on the pitch. I know that the thing that got me through that was not my physicality, and it wasn't that little 12-year-old kid that was hungry to prove himself as an athlete. It was me I'm naturally rebellious. It's how I broke into Hollywood, because I was not a standard writer. I did things outside the norm. I did the norm, but I did it in my own way. And I did the military stuff. I don't know if that's something you can pass on to somebody like you when you're saying you broke through that wall. Dude, it's so funny to me to hear you say what you said, because I remember guys like that. We'd be alongside and you'd be like, come on, man. And they had to do it themselves.
Yeah.
That's what I always tell my kids. Like, my son ran track at UMKC in the 200 meter and had talks about that all the time. But I could have all the talks in the world about how to get there. It's you. It has got to be you that makes the decision. And in the heat of the moment, in the worst part of it, you have to be the one that goes, I got this. And that is the hardest thing in the world to do, and the most rewarding. I don't know how you teach it. I have no idea how you teach it, but I know that if I could plug in my life experiences into my kids and just go, here's what it feels like, I would feel, I see them do it now, and I'm just so happy with my kids.
They have to, like for us, you have to learn it by experience. I think for me was managing expectations. Like, that marathon I was talking about, we were on my goal was to be sub 4 hours. That was the goal. Best I ever did was 4:24, and my goal was to be sub 4, and we were on target till probably about mile 18 or so, and then something happened, and we started slowing down, and I just couldn't do it. And I think just the wheels in my head, kind of, you talk about your golf game, I basically was doing the math and watching things unravel, and it just became more discouraging to me. And maybe I could have worked through it alone, but Eric did his best to say, come on, Pete, you can do this. And it got to the point where I just didn't want to hear that. And basically, I think we did 4:06, so we were over. I was close, but not my goal. And then, so since then, I basically manage my expectations better. Now I do my events by myself. That's the other thing too. So I can work this stuff out in my head, and I basically have my routine, and I know what I want to do. Like when I did that 51, I had a friend that came with me, and he was there running. It was a 1 mile loop where we basically just ran for 12 hours. And I went in and I said, Walt, he's like, what do you want? And I said, I need to do this myself. I said, I'll see you when I get to 40 or 45 or whatever. Let me do this myself. Let me get in that headspace. And I had it all day long. I knew what I wanted to do. I had my game plan. No one knocked me off of it. And then he was there at the very end and did mile 52 with me. So again, sometimes you have to work through that stuff on your own. You can't have, someone can't push you through, I guess, is the best.
Yeah. I think you always have to work through the first stage of it on your own. Like, you can partner up and join with other people, but if you're let me also say, like, I am so jealous of you. I think it's so awesome to run that stuff. Like, are you how big are you size wise?
I'm 5'8" and weigh about 170 pounds. And for me, when I was running marathons, I was broken down. I'd get up to 40 miles a week, and I couldn't do it. I actually became a better athlete when I switched to triathlons, because then I switched in 2015. So I, just by the swimming and the biking and the running, changed things. I'm still a 3-day-a-week I work out 3 days a week. I run
Yeah.
or a bike. I really don't do it every day. I've never been that guy that's done it every day, and it works for me. But I'm also not podium. I'm not there crushing it, trying to be first in my age group. But at 50 to 55, it ain't happening. I mean, the competition is incredible.
Yeah, 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 it really is.
So
I was a Clydesdale. I couldn't, I was too, I think at my leanest, since I've been 18, I was 205 maybe. And good Lord, man, there were some people, running
yeah,
at all the age divisions. But I was shocked, like you'd see a 60-year-old just cruising, like
yeah,
running, 18-minute 3 mile was like, that would not get you podium. Like,
yeah,
I was going, oh my God, are you kidding?
yeah,
I love triathlon. And I know that this is where you started this
yeah,
podcast was through triathlon. I love it. It is such a time
yeah,
suck because because the training is so different. But what a sport, man! What an incredible sport because you've got speed on the bike, the wind racing. You've got the water, like the cooling factor, and then the running, and you're just on your own in that
yeah.
heat and concrete. And I ran the Concrete Man in Springfield, and that was my last one. And I was such a horrible swimmer. Like I was like second to last out of the water, 1,000, and still finished pretty high because I'm a fast, I was a fast runner, so I could still kind of go sub 20 when I was because I was doing this in my early 30s, and I miss it. We have a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
So we have 20 somethings that are away from home.
Okay.
And a 4-year-old. So my wife, I think, still aspires very much so to running. I would love to go back to triathlon because it's kind of the nicest blend of all the sports, all the without taxing the body and the funny thing is I can't really break my fingers now. So when I am playing rugby, I'm always like, oh God, I want to just tape them in the mittens.
Don't want to get hurt.
Yeah, run like boxing gloves, and that's
well.
Go ahead.
That's the thing with triathlon. It is. I couldn't do it when my kids were small, even if I wanted to. My kids were in high school and college when I started. So it was good. They didn't need me to be around, and as long as I was back. But last year training for the full, you're doing century rides on the weekend, Saturday. That's my whole day. It's basically working during the week, and then you're gone for 6 hours plus on the weekend, and then recovering. And so it was tough. I wanted to do that one, and there is nothing better than crossing that finish line and hearing that statement, you are an Ironman. I don't know when I'll do another full. The halves are perfect. I can train. It's easy. Again, I'm not trying the podium. I just love it's for me. I just like for rugby for you. I just love being around all those other people, even though they're not with me during the race. It's hanging out before, it's training with them, it's hanging out after. It's such for me, since I don't have kids right now to go hang out at the t-ball field or with soccer or anything like that. I need that socialization.
Yeah, I ran a Spartan race in Breckenridge with my son and my wife, and it's awful. It's grueling. Because it's up a mountain and then back down the mountain. But God, what a community, right?
Yeah.
Like, what a family of these people racing together and just hanging out. And I think that's most of Colorado. Like, that's what I love about it is because we have the Boulder, and it's I think it was 40,000 people that ran the race. They ran like a 10K, and I got to run that with my daughter, who's in LA now, and so they're
cool.
Like, that's although the Spartans and those kinds of things aren't necessarily my shtick. It's more I love these road races, these long road races. We love hanging out in Boulder because they've got a pretty cool downtown, and they run a 1 mile out and back right through the middle of town.
Yeah.
And it's like every weekend they do this in the summer, and so it's such a runner friendly community. And so it's yeah, the people are different. Runners have some sort of there's a vibe, right? There's a vibe to them that's just a little more chill. And that's the saying when we moved out here. It was like the saying is like you either are chill or you better get that way.
Yeah.
You know, like yeah, and it's totally true because like, and I'm the consummate in that regard. I'm the consummate snowboarder because I still love the board and I still ski a ton and I still kind of slip into the lingo when I'm up there.
Yeah.
But runners remind me of that community too because they're just kind of this. It's not a cult. Cult's the wrong word. It's
no,
like,
it's a cult. That's what my wife calls it. My wife calls it a cult. That's what she calls all my triathlon buddies. You know, that cult, you know, when they call, you know. So
yes. Okay. Well, let's call it a spade. A spade.
So back to rugby real quick. Is that when you do like tournaments, is it always just one game you're playing on the weekend? Do you do more sometimes?
So, like the D1, D2 is still very active. I think Omaha has one of the biggest tournaments in the country, and they invite teams from all over the nation. And that is a 2-day event.
Okay.
And you're most likely going to get 4 matches, which is plenty because most teams, like it's all club rugby. The United States, one of the guys we play touch with here is Dan Lyle. And Dan Lyle's a sportscaster on NBC Rugby. So he'll do all the World Cup coverage and Six Nations and stuff. And so there's plenty of rugby in the amateur side. And because Dan even had to go play overseas to get paid, right? To get anyone. He was a phenomenal player. And so the state rugby, for the most part, is 1 day, 1 game on a weekend, and then occasional tournaments. I played the majority of my tournament rugby in St. Louis and Kansas City, and then the rest of it was just travel. And so these guys are funding themselves. It's such a cool community, man, because it is so much more organized. I know viewers can't see this, but I brought jerseys down. I wanted you to see, like, this is the jersey I got playing. I played a game against the Pill Harriers in Wales, and they came to the States and played here, and we played against them. It was wonderful. And then we played a 1-day tournament. This is my old school rugby, and this is the Australian team that came and played with me. And so
very cool.
We had so you're playing like on tour. You're going to play probably 4 games.
Okay.
You're traveling usually with 22 guys on an active roster, and most clubs have, like most D2 clubs, like the one I coached, had up to 30 guys, but some of those were old boys. And so Boulder has an enormous, like the young guys, the regular squad, the D2 squad has at least 40 on their active roster. And so they can afford to play 4 games over a weekend. Okay. The days of 4 games over a weekend are kind of diminishing, although it's one of the most wonderful opportunities for rugby because there's a lot of learning involved, but they don't, it's harder to do that because you have guys paying out of pocket, just like running, like they're traveling, they're paying, and they're playing to. And so they have funds. Like the club I came from that I was the coach at, they're a really well-run, well-oiled ship. And they have managed to just parlay their way into getting a pitch bought for them and like lighting and all that. And so they're looking to host a fairly regional tournament, and but even that can be a 1-day tournament. So the most rugby I've ever played in one weekend was 5 games, and it was nauseating.
Yeah. Well, that's why I asked. So recovery, how is it? How do you feel after doing that? How long ago was that, and does it take you a long time to get over that?
I played in the tournament in Steamboat last year, I'm a big proponent of chocolate milk. I know that's a big joke.
Hey, I use it all the time. Chocolate milk's great.
It's legit, right?
It is. Absolutely it is.
Calcium, protein,
and beer.
lactic acid, and beer. Well, because we're all, for the most part, we're getting drunk afterwards. We're drinking. I'm not going to candy coat it. Most all the boys drink, and they love their drink, and they play as hard as any human being on the planet, and then they go and get on the piss, right? Like they're going to go drink, and so recovery is crucial in rugby because there are plenty of studies that show that a rugby player puts like the same VO2 max as a marathoner because they are running so intensely for 80 minutes. And when club rugby, unlike televised rugby, you'll see about 20 minutes of halftime. Club rugby, it's maybe 3 minutes and you're back on, right? So we hydrate and we carb load prior to.
Yeah.
All of us as a team, we don't drink the night before. We carb load, and then we probably spend more time stretching after a game and or the next day. When I was young, I would always go on a run the next day, Sunday run. It's a little tougher now with aches and pains, but I still go. I will walk or hike every time because you're not walking onto the pitch without being a certain level of fitness. And so all the guys are mindful. At this age, we've all played for so long and played good quality high level rugby, and we're not playing quality high level. Yeah. And we're all pretty smart about what we've done. I kind of have an approach that I always use. Like I always, if we go to the pub afterwards, right?
Yeah.
The funniest thing to me is the guys are getting their drinks on, but they're drinking beer, but they are always chugging water. Like you look around the room and they're always chugging water because and we have a big feed afterwards. Like every team I've ever played for, against, or with, or in any tournament, there's a massive pasta feed always. And so the diet is as big a part of fitness as anything you can do. And so we all eat. We're very mindful of how we eat. We're going to drink, and that's going to happen. But then the next day, every one of those guys will be out. I remember up in Aspen last year. It was a year before. It was a big weekend, and Kansas City came and played with Springfield up in Aspen, and I played with both sides combined, and we played. And that night, we had like a buddy who was a chef, and he would cook all our meals and prepare it. And then the next day after this game, these guys are just beating the hell out of each other. And the next day they were, I saw guys up on the gondola, like taking rides, hiking with their families, so active. And you would have thought, seeing the game, like these people were going to be crippled, like for days, right? But they're taping their fingers, like they're smart about the injuries they currently have, because unlike marathon, like your goal is probably in triathlon to be at 95 to 100%.
Yeah.
Every rugby player in the world plays the first game at 100%, and everything after that is a sliding scale. It is 90, then it's 80, then it's 70. I played an entire season with an ankle taped, like the whole thing was wrapped in like a little package. It was or a finger that would be twisted or something.
Yeah.
They're not limping out there with like a broken collarbone or something. Like injuries are taken seriously and they're off the field. But you're minimizing the expectation. And so I think they're smart about it. I really like when I look at the scope of athletes. I think the thing that any rugby player would, if any of the Boulder Old Boys sat here with you, or any of the Springfield Old Boys sat here with you, they would all say the same thing, that they they are in the game for the long haul. They're playing a game that, unfortunately, in the U.S., the mentality is play your 4 years of football in high school, and then maybe play D1, D3 college. And if you don't, okay, so you're one of the lucky ones and you get to go to D1 and you're playing at a high level. And then you hit the lottery and you play the NFL. The rest of the guys, they're done.
Yeah.
And they get beer guts and they get live in the suburbs, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
And a rugby player, the big pitching point for these guys is, look, this is a game you can play the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because, yes, I can hit a guy hard with a big shoulder, but it's actually the technique I use to bring a person down, not my ability to just buff up and smack him. It's more about the way I grab the legs as my shoulder hit the thighs, right? So it's my technique that keeps me from being injured and them from being injured.
Yeah.
The broken arm, I was talking about the guy who broke his arm. It was a fluke. It wasn't something I did. Like, I'm a pretty mean player. Yeah, you can. I'm sure if my buddies are listening to this, like, oh my God, he's really mean, But I don't play dirty. I don't want anybody to get critically injured. I don't want anybody to get really hurt. And so that technique is what keeps guys playing for into their 70s. And so that, I think, is the appeal of it. If I had to recruit, like you asked me in an email, like, what would you tell people if they're going to play later in life? I know plenty of guys that started playing in their 40s. One of my favorite players, a guy named John Straw, started playing when he was 40 years old, like the day of 40 years old, he started playing. He was one of the hardest hitting SOBs I've ever played against. And he was wiry. He was not a big guy. He was not like this hulking mass of a dude. He was just really good at his technique, and he kept it really clean. And I played alongside that man into his 60s. Yeah. He was playing with the young guys as he was, in his 60s. And so I think anything that gets you back out of the house and gets you, yes, I love the camaraderie. And I know the individual's fulfillment you get from marathon and triathlon is something to admire, like wildly admire. But I think if a person were to, I thought a lot about that when you put that on paper. I thought a lot about, like, what would I say to somebody if they were going to take it up? And jokingly, the answer is probably like, well, I'd say some different things if we were at the pub. But the thing I'd really say is, like, why not? Why not get back out and meet a bunch of dudes that are welcoming to you? Like, right now, if I get on a plane to Australia, I got 3 places I could go stay. Like, hey, man, come on over, And
that's incredible.
Wales, like, let's just, I've had plenty of people come here to Denver and crash on our couches. And we're going to a wedding as soon as the virus is over. We're heading to a wedding in Australia next year because just from rugby buddies. I was in a wedding last year in Canada, rugby buddies again. So it's a global sport, and it's second only to soccer. And so I think and I have never seen people not welcome a new guy, no matter what the age.
That's awesome.
Same thing.
That's awesome. So how long do you see yourself playing this sport?
Until they bury me on the pitch.
So the question is, you going to wear one of those gold jerseys? Because don't they have those for...
Yeah, they sure do. You got to go to Aspen, man. If you ever get a chance to go, you have to go see it, because like there's an entire team of gold jerseys, right? But it's I don't know if I can stop. I don't know if I can, because I tried to stop for a moment.
Yeah,
I did. I started to make excuses. I went on the hero's journey, right? Like, as the writer, here's the incredible writing reference, but I went on the path of, like, maybe I'm aging out.
Yeah.
And that is not the path I belong on. That is not the path because I've always tried to live a life. I remember you asked me about the text, right? Like,
Yeah.
what 2 words would you put?
Yeah.
And I was talking to my wife about it today, and because it's not just for my kids, or it's not just for my sanity. It's for me. It's for me as an individual, because I think the way that I parent and the thing that has helped my kids be more successful, like more driven, is that they too have adopted the philosophy that they're going to live. It's not all about myself. But my sport is for me. My sport, the thing that I compete for, is for keeping me alive, keeping me sane, and keeping me driven. And I can't see a life without sport. I remember David Duval got asked, about winning the British Open, and he said, I didn't see how I couldn't. I didn't see myself not doing it. And I thought, God, what a wonderful attitude to have, to look at life like it's God. This is the God's honest truth. This is totally true. In golf, every day I stepped on the tee, there was a little voice inside my head that would be like, "You sure, man? You sure about because I can hit a ball just like you see on TV, right? Like I can hit it a mile, I can hit it accurately, I can putt, but that little voice was always there. In writing, I've never had that little voice. I've always believed, like, no, I can do this. I can push myself to be, and the harder I push, the more I get out front of it, and the more satisfying it is. Today was an incredibly fulfilling emotional day. And so I think, I don't know how I can't do it. My coach, my first rugby coach, we play a tennis tournament every summer, canceled this year, but every summer, I'm going to show you the jersey, because even though nobody's going to see it, I think you'll get a kick out of this, because it's got we're the goats now. My team is the Springfield Mud Puppies that I coached and grew up with, but now it's the Springfield Goats, and they made a COVID appropriate
awesome
jersey with the goat with the mask and the actual molecules. So
I love it. Yeah, you got to send a picture for basically your for your episode. You're gonna have to send me a picture of that. That is awesome. That is awesome.
I played, but the coach that I started playing for in the '90s came out and got on the pitch and ran with us. And he's in his 70s now, and he's he's going there too. He's going to go get his ashes sprinkled on the pitch, I'm sure. Pappy, his name's John Morrow. I love that man to death, and he was, but he is the kind of man I want to be, right?
Yeah.
Like when you see somebody like that, and they're just there's no option. They're David Duval the hell out of it, right? There's no option to not be the thing they're being.
Yeah.
That's how I want to live. So I'll play as long as I can.
Yeah, that's awesome. So do you have any mantras or quotes that you kind of tell yourself, or?
That was the one question I thought about the most that you listed. I was like, do I have a mantra? Because the mantra really was always, the thing that was always driving me was the water aerobics thing.
Yeah.
It was always the thing that was going to be the thing that was keeping me going. But there is a voice inside my head when I'm broken and when I'm down that always says, don't quit. It has I do not know why it's there.
Yeah.
My wife and I talked a lot about this at length during the quarantine, because we both came from pretty broken homes. And I think, the joke is that every rider is equipped to handle the quarantine. They're isolated, or, but as people, as humans, my wife and I both, growing up in a tough environment does toughen you, or it breaks you. And when you survive it, when you get through it, and when you thrive, then you rely on that thing inside yourself. And so I don't think it's a mantra so much
Yeah.
as a state of being, like a place that I get to that that I draw a lot of strength from. That is that's I feel unbreakable in that moment. And I think that's what I've always felt with trying to teach both in golf and as a parent and as an athlete is to be to not let anything stop you, and so that has been, looking back now, I'm at the age where I'm starting to look as far back as I am looking forward.
Yeah.
I think about that a lot. I don't know where it came from so much as I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for this thing inside me that wants to keep going and wants to keep driving and wants to keep pushing. I tell my wife that I've always felt like, and trust me, I'm not like a transcendental dude, but I do feel like, because I think good writing comes from being very meticulous about the process. But I do think that writing kind of exists in the universe, and it's your job you don't necessarily create it so much as just draw it into yourself. And so I feel like that has been something that I also think about the way I've approached sport, which is to let the dance with the date you brought, right? Like to be the thing that you are that day in that moment, like the same way you talk about breaking these milestones and accepting who you are right now for who you are. I think that's how I kind of look at it in general. I don't have wish I had a cool mantra about kicking butt and taking names, but I really don't have so much as the way as I feel about it.
Well, here's what's funny, Sam, is as I've been asking people that, I can say majority of the people that I've talked to in their 70s and 80s, not one of them have a mantra. They just do it. I mean, so if there's anything, they're stealing Nikes, just do it. I mean, they just, and when I talk to them, I'm not thinking they got some great stuff. It's this younger population. It's us. It's our younger age group that has these things that we need to buy in. We have all these quotes and we have things around us. You ask them, they're like, nah, I just do it.
My favorite posters, are the demotivators, the ones that break down.
Yeah.
Not the motivators, like where the eagle's flying and it says something. It's more of like 9 times out of 10 you're going to lose, right? Like it's going to be the thing that is a big slap of reality in the face where you're forced to like address the things that are more likely going to happen.
Yeah, that's funny.
Because I don't want it, because I know that if I could bottle it up, what's going on in my head when I'm playing rugby is worth its weight in gold, because it's this thing that's like I'm gonna all I can remember thinking when I'm playing. I don't black out. I'm not like that idiot thing where I don't know people. I see red and I just get mad. No, I'm not like that. There's a tremendous amount of calm and things slow down for me as I'm playing. It's just like the way I'd write a slow motion scene, right? Like things just get a little more at peace. I always told my teammate, like my team I coached, that rugby is just controlled chaos. It's complete madness in a way, and yet it's, as the longer you play, the more the field begins to open up visually, and things begin to slow down. And it's amazing because you can learn to anticipate, kind of be in this space. And conversely, golf taught me to stay in the now, stay in the present, focus on your breathing, and stay, be this one thing you are at this one moment. And so, I think the curse of getting older as an athlete is you have plenty of time to think about the things that you were just doing when you were young, right?
Yeah.
And the mistake is to try to be those things again. Like try to be the thing you were, instead of reforming and transforming into this new thing you are. And so I think for whatever reason, that's what's kept me vital in writing, like kept me relevant and kept me going, is I don't feel old. I don't
Yeah.
feel. I remember asking my grandma this question. I said, like, I was super close to my grandma, and she said, I said, Grandma, when did you really feel old? And she was, 82 at the time. She says, well, I went to the gas station the other day and I couldn't figure out how to work the debit card. So I just went home. I just turned around and went home. And I remember thinking, like, so you mean you just felt old yesterday? Like the other day, Grandma? This is the first time you felt old? And yeah, because if we didn't have mirrors, if we didn't have a way to reflect and look at upon ourselves and watch the aging happen or feel the tendons and joints aching, like we wouldn't really feel old. We would just, so it's just kind of a myth we buy into, right? Like, so.
We do. I think we buy into that myth, and that's partly what I'm trying to do with this whole podcast, is I want to break that myth. I want to show people that, look, age is just a number. It has nothing to do with what you're doing. It's funny, my mother-in-law, she keeps saying to me, she's like, Pete, you need to do all this stuff. You need to look at your birth. She's in her late 80s. She's 86, as active as can be, doesn't sit still. But yet she's telling me that I need to watch myself because she's worried that something's going to happen to me. And I said, no, I'm fine. I said, you don't sit still. I'm not going to sit still. Actually, I want to be what you're doing. I want to be as active as you are. So I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. And I said, it doesn't matter what your birth certificate says. Who cares what your driver's license says?
Oh, I get it all the time. My mom's like, what are you doing playing rugby? You're at that age. I'm like, why wouldn't I? This is not... my defense is always, have you changed me yet? So that's like, I'm going to be this. This is what I'm going to be, and that's how I'm going to be forever. So she's kind of giving up, but she's also not giving up. She has to do the mom thing, like it's just a mom thing. Yeah. But she also
the thing is, like, the last thing I want to, because we're done here, is other than I do want to ask you about that hashtag and, my miles are for, because, for me, I don't know if I put it in the email, is that, I had a high school friend die of cancer. So every day to me, I feel pretty lucky and blessed to be able to be 51 and be married and have kids. And I think about him all the time. He didn't have that opportunity. And so I definitely feel lucky and blessed to be able to do the things I'm doing. And that's why I'm going to continue, like you said, I'm going to keep doing everything I possibly can. I'm going to enjoy every day of this life, every way I can, because there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees for tomorrow. And I had another friend pass away 4 years ago from cancer, and she was the same age I was. And, so I definitely, it opens your eyes to say, look, let's enjoy ourselves. Let's have fun. So if you think back and what you're doing, why are your miles? Why are you doing the things you're doing?
Yeah. It's my world. I think my two things in my world, because as a writer, the thing that's hit me more recently, having the opportunity with the cartel and that I didn't have before. The song, the kind, I can send you the link, got out to an audience, and the workers in Puerto Rico reached out to me, and we're super thankful, because that's the wonderful part of art, right? Like you can reach out to the universe. But ever since then, I can't get the taste out of my mouth that I made an impact in people's world. And my writing, even though I'm writing action comedy, the subtext of the film is about death and suicide. And it's a funny, silly script, but I want to see it made because it has something to say to our world about how to deal with death and our fear of it, and reconciling suicide and those sorts of things, PTSD.
Yeah.
The Hitman flick I wrote has to do with bullying, and so I have these things I want to say, and so I'm finally hitting stride in my career, and I want to keep living for that. So because I want to share with the world those things, I want to, that's what I'm driven by every day, to speak to our world, because I think I have a voice. I found it, and I want to share it with the world. My world also is my kids and my wife, and having a 4-year-old is obviously you got to be around, because the older kids are like, all right, Dad, if you go, it's cool. We've heard lectures, you're good, right? The 4-year-old night, she's so. Here's my shameless plug. She got a tweet. I put a tweet up with her just reading, quote unquote, like a Star Wars book, and Mark Hamill liked it, right? Like Luke Skywalker today. So, so she needs me around.
Yeah.
And my wife lost her dad to cancer, and so my wife and I married later in life, and I married like the greatest girl ever, and she's just my bro. She's my girl bro. Right? Like she's my absolutely best friend, and puts up with living with a writer, and so I need her around too. So it's two sides. It's my world is that. My world is my family and what I had to say to this world, to the universe back. So that's the answer. Like I have thought long and hard about that. But yeah.
I love it. That's awesome, Sam. Incredible. Hey, I can't thank you enough for spending the time with me. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. This has been really great. I've really enjoyed it. And I do hope that when you get out here for the race, you'll come stay. We'll go have a beer and have a great time.
Absolutely, yeah. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and were able to gain some insight into how one weathering athlete approaches each day of training and racing to stay as injury-free as possible. I believe his biggest strengths are his ability to put in the hard work needed to succeed, including learning from his past and having the tenacity to take the necessary steps. He lives in an outdoor paradise outside of Boulder, which allows him to spend time hiking and skiing. He has incorporated Pilates, yoga, and strength training as a way to decrease his risk for injury from sport and from long days of riding. As he states, he knew from age 12 that his goal was to be a writer. He provides great insight on how being methodical, utilizing correct technique with writing and athletics, and having a balls-to-the-wall mindset, anything is possible. I have a feeling if all goes as planned, he will be found on the pitch into his golden years, and that any gold jersey, which represents protection, will probably not make it off the bench or out of his bag. If you would like to learn more about the things that Sam is involved in, I recommend you visit the show notes. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. If you find today's or any other episodes inspiring, I ask you to consider joining our Patreon program. Details can be found at www.weatheredathlete.com. Also, please don't forget to hit subscribe to this podcast, share with your friends, give me a rating on Apple, leave me a comment or drop me a line if you feel you have what it takes to enter the Weathered Athlete podcast. Lastly, no matter how you complete your miles, I encourage you to use the following hashtag, #MyMilesAre4, as a way to reinforce the purpose of those miles. As always, my miles are for the journey. Pete Perusic.